The story of Pakistan's post-independence history is a study in how the fate of a nation is shaped not by the ideals it proclaims at its founding, but by the lived realities of power, self-interest, and the choices made by those entrusted with its destiny. In 1947, Pakistan emerged as a new nation, carved out from British India on the promise of a homeland for Muslims. Yet almost immediately, the promise of representative, civilian rule was eclipsed by a different reality: the rise of a powerful military, bureaucratic elite, and a society in which personal gain, factional loyalty, and institutional self-preservation often took precedence over collective aspirations and principled nation-building. While India struggled through the chaos of partition but ultimately built a resilient, if imperfect, democracy, Pakistan's history became a cycle of hope, betrayal, and a slow slide into a system where each person, from the village street to the elite circles of Islamabad, often comes to believe that the only cause truly worth fighting for is their own. Almost every student of South Asian history knows the facts: that Pakistan has never seen a prime minister complete a single full 5-year term. The story of its politics reads like a chronicle of interrupted governments, vanished mandates, and above all, the constant meddling and dominance of the army. Since General Ayub Khan's coup in 1958, the Pakistan military has placed itself at the center of the country's political life, not as a neutral defender of the constitution, but as a permanent kingmaker, an arbiter that can dismiss civilian governments when they challenge its interests or threaten its preeminence. This is not a marginal detail, it is the defining institutional fact of Pakistan. Decade after decade, civilians have come and gone: Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, Mohammad Khan Junejo, Nawaz Sharif, Benazir Bhutto, and Imran Khan, each promising change, each ultimately humbled or ousted, and each, sooner or later, forced to acknowledge that real power lies not in the parliament, but behind the high walls of the army cantonments and the conference rooms of Rawalpindi. The army's dominance has had a profound effect not just on policy or elections, but on the very way ordinary people think about their place in Pakistan. When the rules of the game are set by those who can remove anyone at any time, politicians learn to hedge their bets, forging alliances not so much with the people, but with those who pull the strings. This is why so many of Pakistan's political elites, when out of power, seek safe havens abroad, establish lucrative businesses in Dubai, London, or North America, and amass fortunes to secure their families against the inevitable swings of political fortune. The argument that drives countless ordinary Pakistanis to look out only for themselves, to seek jobs in the Gulf, to turn a blind eye to corruption if it means a promotion, to use ethnic or sectarian networks for small advantages, remains the same logic. If no one is watching out for the country as a whole, why shouldn't each person grab what they can and get ahead? Consider the examples that make headlines and set tongues wagging in Karachi tea houses and Lahore drawing rooms. Generals and ex-prime ministers who settle abroad after stints in power are not a rare exception. They are often seen as the inevitable end point. General Pervez Musharraf, who seized power in 1999, spent much of his later life in exile in Dubai and London, reportedly living off substantial investments and property assets. His estimated net worth, according to media reports, ran into millions of dollars, a figure rarely denied but never fully explained. Shaukat Aziz, a civilian prime minister who owed his rise to his technocratic prowess and connections, comfortably transitioned to life between the UAE, the US, and Europe after his tenure, reportedly with business interests and assets safely out of Pakistani jurisdiction. Even former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, after years of alternating between power and prosecution, was allowed to leave Pakistan on medical grounds and resides in London. His family's business empire, including properties and financial holdings, the subject of controversy and court cases that gripped Pakistan's media for years. Benazir Bhutto, after 2 stints as Prime Minister and years of legal trouble, lived for extended periods in Dubai and the UK before her return and tragic assassination. The list goes on. Asif Ali Zardari, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, and numerous army officers, including General Rahil Sharif, who took a prominent security position in Saudi Arabia, have familial, business, or residential interests abroad. The details change, the pattern remains. This phenomenon is not simply about securing one's life after retirement. It is a reflection of how the incentive structure in Pakistan, from the highest echelons to ordinary families, has become detached from a sense of national project or public good. Deep down, far too many Pakistanis feel that apna kaam bano, look out for yourself, because the state is too captured, too chaotic, or simply unwilling to defend the interests of ordinary people. The army's immense economic footprint, which runs everything from commercial banks to real estate conglomerates under the auspices of welfare foundations, remains the most visible symbol of this privatization of public assets. The Fauji Foundation, Army Welfare Trust, and Defense Housing Authority are not just names. They are billion-dollar enterprises that guarantee comfort and prosperity for generations of military families, while millions of citizens struggle for basic healthcare, education, or reliable energy. The Jawan soldier may still make sacrifices on the border, but the generals ensure that the spoils of power translate into wealth, property, and often passports in safer, richer countries. This every man for himself mood filters down, corroding the bonds of community and civic life. The notion of dying for the country, of public sacrifice, has lost much of its emotional force in a society that sees its heroes retire to foreign capitals, invest their pensions in London flats, or shield their sons and daughters from the uncertainties of Pakistani public life by sending them to schools in England or Canada. Army officers dream of their plots in defense, politicians of cashing out for a quiet life in the West, and ambitious youth yearn to join them in the promised land of foreign visas and corporate jobs. It is a system custom-built to produce both cynicism and sharp, sometimes ruthless, individual ambition. Contrast this with India, where despite deep problems, there has been a consistent trajectory toward greater pluralism, national integration, and the creation of a public sphere where minorities ascend to the highest offices. Dr. Zakir Hussain, the first Muslim president of India, presided over the republic with dignity and vision, an open statement that the country stood for inclusion and equal citizenship. This is not tokenism, but a recurring pattern. Indian Muslims have served as vice presidents, chief justices, chief scientists, top cricketers, and movie icons. The message is never that communal tensions don't exist, they do, or that all is fair and harmonious, but rather that the constitutional promise of opportunity, at least structurally if not always perfectly realized, remains alive. That is why famous Muslim voices continue to shape India's national story. Cricket legend Mohammad Shami, Bollywood stars, poets, and public intellectuals who capture the imagination of the world from within a secular, democratic system. India's model becomes even more compelling when contrasted with the demonstrable development in Jammu and Kashmir over recent years, culminating in 2025. Here, reality has overtaken rhetoric. The opening of the Chenab Arch Bridge, the world's highest railway bridge, stands as a testament to the Indian state's determination to connect remote populations not with slogans or handouts, but through bullet trains, all-weather highways, and new economic corridors. The Van Bharat Express linking Katra to Srinagar now races past formerly impassable terrain, a daily reminder that the logic of openness and integration can do what decades of politicized debate could not. Markets in Baramulla, once beset by the uncertainty of conflict and seasonal isolation, are now plugged into national logistics chains. Young Kashmiris are more likely to find their future in industry and startups than in protest or exile. In publicly released statements and government bulletins, the Prime Minister's office cites not just the engineering marvels, the 359-meter-high Chenab Bridge, the cable-stayed Angikard Bridge open for traffic, tunnels drilled through the heart of the Himalayas, but the economic logic driving these ventures: tourism, horticulture, handlooms, and tech. Trains and highways are depoliticizing space, reducing the costs of time, and making the valley's development visible to the world. The comparison is unavoidable. One part of the region accelerates into the future, the other lags, shackled by elite self-preservation and never-ending cycles of security crises. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 2024-2025 has seen some of the highest levels of violence in years, as recorded by multiple conflict monitors. The epicenters, Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, are no longer frontiers, but symptoms of a broader malaise, the inability or unwillingness of the state to deliver shared prosperity and national cohesion. Instead, when the system is most threatened, it defaults once again to coercion, military courts for civilians, arrests of opposition leaders, media blackouts, and periodic amnesties for those able to cut the right deals or threaten the system with instability. When foreign governments, America, the EU, the UK, warn of jeopardized trade deals and investment, the government reacts, but the average Pakistani shrugs. Why should he care, when the elite always seem to find a loophole, a backdoor, or an exit visa when the going gets tough? The fate of Pakistan's former leaders is a case study in this mindset. General Musharraf, exiled between London and Dubai, famously lived in high comfort with security details and frequent media appearances. His properties, wealth, and investments, subject to intense speculation, were enough for a comfortable, cosmopolitan life far from Karachi's chaos. Shaukat Aziz, with a background in global finance, moved with ease between continents, enjoying the fruits of his tenure. Nawaz Sharif, now in London, presides over family businesses with deep roots in both Pakistan and the UK. Benazir Bhutto, in her years away, was never far from luxury accommodations abroad. Even those in the extended military elite, businessmen, senior officers, find homes in Canada, the UAE, and Europe, quietly acquiring citizenship or permanent residence, while the average citizen adjusts to rolling blackouts and inflation by dreaming of a similar escape. This environment, where everyone seems to have a backup plan abroad, makes the rhetoric of sacrifice and patriotism ring hollow. How can one expect heroes from a populace when role models are defined by their success in cashing out? The result is a tragedy of the commons, where trust in state and society erodes, national projects are seen as opportunities for personal gain, and the best and brightest chase careers abroad, not to serve at home. The dream that animated Pakistan's creation, a country of principle, faith, and opportunity, has withered into a transactional society where winning is defined as getting out. No charismatic leader, no rousing TV anchor, no well-orchestrated parade can remedy this rot until the core logic of system, a system that exalts the institution over the individual, but in practice rewards only the lucky and connected, finally changes. By contrast, India, with all its failures and conflicts, keeps returning to the difficult, noisy work of democracy. Governments fall, scandals erupt, opposition takes to the streets, but the state, and the society behind it, consciously invests in continuity, inclusion, and the slow, sometimes halting, expansion of what is possible for its people. Kashmir's new rail links, engineering marvels crossing the most hostile terrain, are symbols of this faith, that if the machinery of state is open, consistent, and visible, ordinary citizens can aspire not to escape, but to belong. The stories of Dr. Zakir Hussain, Dr. Kalam, and countless others reinforce the idea that minorities are not tokens, but participants in a project bigger than any single institution or interest group. Pakistan's future will not change until its ruling elite cease to treat the country as a disposable asset for personal gain, until officers and politicians alike live with the consequences of their decisions at home, not abroad, and until the machinery of state serves the collective, not just the insiders. For now, too many with means seek to be anywhere but home, their fortunes and futures placed in banks and businesses overseas. They have taught several generations, by their choices, that the ultimate form of patriotism is self-preservation. Until that changes, the country's story will remain a cautionary tale, a land where the only real success is to get away, while the rest continue the search for a nation worth the sacrifice. This is Pakistan's contradiction, founded on idealism, built on personal retreat, a nation where the generals and politicians alike measure victory by their ability to leave, a society where cynicism is safer than hope, and the slow, painstaking work of nation-building is constantly sabotaged by the logic of escape. Until Pakistan confronts this core truth and rewrites the incentives that drive its best people out, it will remain what it is today, not just a nation of paradoxes, but one where, as the world moves forward, the elite wait in first-class lounges, passports in hand, ready to catch the next flight to anywhere else.